People run from being alone like it's a disease. They'll jump from person to person, conversation to conversation, just to avoid the echo of their own thoughts. But here's the truth. Sometimes the most dangerous place to be is surrounded by the wrong people. You can lose yourself trying to keep company. You can trade your peace for chaos, your dreams for distractions, your voice for someone else's expectations. Being alone, that's not a prison. That's the workshop. That's where the real work begins. When you're alone, you stop performing. You don't have to smile if it's fake. You don't have to explain why your energy is off. You get to be honest, raw, unfiltered, unapologetically yourself. And in that silence, that sacred stillness, something starts to happen. You begin to hear the voice inside you again. The one that got drowned out by noise, by opinions, by doubt. You remember who you were before the world told you who to be. That's not loneliness. That's clarity. See, alone doesn't mean abandoned. It means available, to grow, to heal, to elevate. Some doors only open when you're walking by yourself. Some blessings don't show up until you clear the room. I've seen people miss their breakthrough because they were too busy chasing company. Let me tell you this, your peace is too expensive to spend on people who don't pour back into you. Your purpose is too sacred to be dragged through dysfunction. So if you're alone right now, good. Use it. Build in it. Heal in it. Rise in it. Because once you've been refined by solitude, you'll never again settle for being half loved, half seen, or half heard. Alone is where you become whole. And that changes everything. You know, we spend a whole lot of our lives adjusting ourselves for the comfort of other people. We learn it early. Told to be quiet when we want to speak. Told to smile when we feel like crying. Told to keep the peace even when it's tearing us apart. So we shrink. We shape-shift. We become exactly what they need, and we forget what we need. We forget who we were before they told us who to be. That's why being alone feels so foreign. Because we've been too busy performing, too busy pleasing, too busy proving. You ever sit in a room by yourself and feel like a stranger? That's not loneliness, that's unfamiliarity with your own soul. That's the moment where your real work begins. Because when the room gets quiet, when there's no one left to impress, no one left to chase, no one left to lean on, that's when you meet yourself for the first time in years. It's uncomfortable, I know. You start hearing that voice again, the one you buried under compromise and fear. It starts whispering reminders. You used to dream bigger than this. You used to stand taller. You used to laugh without checking who was watching. That voice is your truth, and it only speaks when the world shuts up long enough for you to listen. Let me tell you a story. There was a young woman I knew, sharp mind, big heart, carried light wherever she went. But every relationship she got into, she made herself smaller. One man told her she was too driven, so she slowed down. Another told her she was too loud, so she lowered her voice. Another said she was too much, so she became less. Every time she tried to love someone, she lost more of herself. And then one day it all came crashing down. She was alone. The phone stopped ringing. The silence was deafening. At first, she thought she was broken. Thought maybe something was wrong with her. But in that stillness, something powerful started to happen. She started to remember. She remembered the girl who dreamed of owning her own company. The one who used to laugh until her stomach hurt. The one who walked into a room and owned it. Not because she had to, but because she knew she could. So she started over. No audience, no applause, just her. She got a small apartment, took online business courses, invested in therapy, started building quietly, consistently. And then one day I saw her again, radiant, confident, peaceful. Not because someone else completed her, but because she finally completed herself. She had met the woman she'd always been, hidden under layers of not enough and too much. And she loved her fully. That's the power of solitude. That's what happens when the noise dies down and your truth gets a voice again. You stop asking people for permission to be who you are. You stop chasing love that makes you shrink. You realize you were never too much. You were just in rooms that were too small. You don't really know yourself until you've stood in the silence with your own fears, your own hopes, your own reflection, and didn't flinch. That's what being alone gives you. A mirror, a map, a moment. To find your way back to the person you were always meant to be. The person who doesn't beg to be seen. The person who doesn't need to be saved. The person who knows, without a doubt, they were always enough. And the beautiful thing is, once you meet that version of you, you never let them go again. Let's talk about what we don't always admit out loud. How many of us have confused connection with peace? How many of us have stayed in relationships that drained us just so we didn't have to face ourselves in the mirror alone? We're so afraid of the quiet, we settle for chaos. We think a warm body next to us at night means we're safe, loved, chosen. But there's a kind of pain that lives inside forced companionship. A kind of ache that no one else can see, but you carry it every single day. Let me be clear. Just because you've got someone by your side doesn't mean you're not starving for peace. Some of the loneliest people in the world are in relationships. Some of the most broken folks are the ones who smile in pictures together, but sleep back to back, heartbeats miles apart. You ever sit next to someone and feel invisible? That's not love. That's survival. And that's not enough. We stay because we're scared. Scared to eat dinner at the table alone. Scared to wake up to silence. Scared we won't know who we are without them. But fear will have you calling chaos normal and labeling dysfunction as just how love is. It's not. Love shouldn't make you anxious. Shouldn't make you question your worth. It shouldn't feel like walking on glass, waiting for the next explosion. Love should bring peace, not panic. You ever see someone glow after leaving a relationship? Like really glow, skin clear, spirit light, smile unbothered. That's not just time passing. That's peace having room to breathe again. That's what happens when the noise goes quiet and the soul starts to stretch. The weight they carried, the constant explaining, the trying to be enough, the making themselves small just to avoid another fight, it all drops. And in its place, silence. Sweet, healing silence. I've seen it with my own eyes. A brother of mine was in a relationship for 5 years. On the outside, it looked solid, but behind closed doors, it was storms every night. Insecurity, control, manipulation wrapped up in, I just love you too much. He stayed because he thought loyalty meant endurance. Thought if he just held on long enough, it would get better. But love ain't supposed to break you down to prove it's real. One day, he finally walked away. Said he didn't even recognize himself anymore. I saw him 6 months later, lighter, calmer, smiling like peace had finally come home. He said, "Man, I didn't know how loud it was until it got quiet." Sometimes you don't realize how much noise you've been living in until you step outside of it. And that silence, that peace, it's not lonely, it's liberating. It gives you room to think clearly, to sleep deeply, to breathe without pressure. You start laughing again, not the forced kind, the real kind. You don't have to look over your shoulder, decode text messages, or rehearse your truth to make it sound smaller. You just exist, and that existence feels whole. Don't let anyone tell you being alone means you're missing something. You're not. Sometimes being alone means you finally got free. Free from drama. Free from begging to be understood. Free from chaos you kept calling love. And once you taste that kind of peace, you'll never settle for noise again. Growth, real growth, don't happen in the spotlight. It don't come from the applause, the attention, or the company you keep. Growth shows up in the silence, when it's just you, your struggle, and the voice inside that won't let you quit. That's where the change happens. That's where the fire gets built. See, people want the outcome, but they don't want the isolation that comes before it. They want the success, the healing, the breakthrough, but not the lonely nights, the quiet mornings, the unanswered texts, the confusion that hits you when you're in between who you were and who you're becoming. But let me tell you something. It's in that in-between space where everything starts to shift. You don't grow in comfort. Comfort is where you settle. Comfort is where dreams go to sleep. You grow in discomfort. You grow in uncertainty. You grow when there's no one cheering you on and no safety net to catch you. You grow when you've got nothing but discipline, faith, and the will to keep going. It's when everybody else falls off and you keep showing up. That's growth. Think about a tree, a big, strong, towering oak. That tree didn't become what it is because the sun smiled at it. It became what it is because it grew down before it ever grew up. Roots deep in the dirt, in the dark, no audience, no recognition, just stillness, just time. That's how it became unshakable. Same thing with people chasing greatness. You ever see an athlete in the off-season? Not on camera, not at the game, training. In some quiet gym at 5 a.m., no fans, no lights, just sweat and silence. That's the grind people don't post about. That's the pain you don't see. But that's where champions are made. Alone, with purpose, with clarity. Sometimes life pulls people away from you not because you're unworthy, but because they can't go where you're going. Their energy doesn't match your calling. Their presence doesn't fit your future. And instead of trying to hold on, maybe you need to see the separation as elevation. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. It's hard, I know. It feels like abandonment. It feels like rejection. But what if it's protection? What if the solitude isn't a setback, but a setup? What if the quiet is giving you the space you need to build something that can't be shaken next time the storm comes? I know people who found their purpose in the middle of isolation. Lost friends, lost relationships, lost everything that used to make them feel whole. And still, something inside them said, keep going. And they did. And they grew. Not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. So if you find yourself alone right now, confused, maybe even hurt, understand this: you're in the middle of something sacred. You're not stuck. You're being stretched. And that stretch, that's how you know you're about to rise. Don't rush it. Don't run from it. Lean into it. Let it teach you. Let it build you. Because when you come out on the other side, you won't be the same. You'll be wiser, stronger, clearer, and you'll thank the silence for everything it gave you that the noise never could. That's growth. And it always starts alone. There comes a point in your life where you have to stop pretending you don't hear it. The noise, the chatter, the opinions, the doubts, the fear disguised as advice. It's like standing in a room full of radios, all tuned to different stations, all blasting at the same time. Everybody's got something to say. Everybody's pulling you in a different direction. And in the middle of it all, there's your voice. Small, drowned out, but still there, trying to speak, trying to guide you. That voice is your clarity. And you'll never hear it until you turn the volume down on everything and everyone else. The truth is, not everyone in your life is meant to go where you're going. Some people were only meant to be chapters, not the whole book. They were with you for a season, not a lifetime. And the longer you try to drag them into your future, the heavier your past becomes. You ever try to run carrying dead weight? You can't move. You can't breathe. You can't see clearly. You want to build something real. You want to rise. Then you're going to have to clean house. I'm not talking about being cruel. I'm talking about being clear. You can't build a dream around people who don't believe in dreams. You can't plant seeds in soil that refuses to grow. You've got people around you who smile when you lose and go silent when you win. Pay attention. That's not support. That's static. That's clutter. Clarity requires space, mental space, emotional space, sometimes even physical space. You can't heal your wounds when you keep bumping into the same people who caused them. You can't think straight when you're constantly defending your purpose to people who never had one of their own. And yet, we keep them around because it's familiar, because we're afraid of being alone, because we think we owe it to them. But the only thing you owe anyone is the truth. And the truth is, your peace is too valuable to rent out to people who don't respect it. I've seen people lose everything trying to keep everybody happy. Talented folks, gifted, passionate, driven, too scared to chase their calling because someone they loved told them it was unrealistic. Too afraid to walk away from the crowd because they didn't want to stand alone. But here's the thing. Clarity often walks alone. Purpose doesn't come with a parade. Sometimes it comes in a whisper, in a quiet moment when it's just you and your thoughts. You want to write that book. Then clear the space to hear your own ideas. You want to heal from your past. Then distance yourself from the voices that keep reminding you of who you used to be. You want to change your life. Then make room for it. And if they leave when you start making space for clarity, let them. Let them walk. Because anybody who can't handle your truth, your growth, your silence, they were never really with you. They were just along for the noise. You don't need more noise. You need stillness. You need focus. You need people who don't just clap when you win, but sit with you while you build. People who remind you of your power when you forget. That kind of company is rare. So until you find it, protect your space. Clarity costs. It costs comfort. It costs company. It costs the illusion of who you thought you had to be. But in return, it gives you something priceless: freedom. The freedom to think, to breathe, to become. And once you've had a taste of that kind of clarity, you'll never go back to living in noise again. Let's get something straight right now. Being alone doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you're unlovable. It doesn't mean life passed you by while everyone else got their happy ending. That's just a story the world tells you when it doesn't understand what real transformation looks like. Because being alone, that's not the end. That's the middle. That's the process. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. See, there's something sacred about solitude. Something the world rushes past in its obsession with relationships, applause, and attention. But solitude is where the real shaping happens. It's where the noise dies down and you start to hear your own heartbeat again. That heartbeat, that's your rhythm. That's your identity. That's your reminder that you were whole before anyone ever touched you. And you'll still be whole long after they're gone. But too many people can't sit still in that silence. They panic. They grab at anything, anyone, just to avoid that lonely feeling. They fill their time with distractions. They crowd their beds with people they don't love and conversations that don't feed them. They rush into relationships that feel good for a moment but leave them emptier than before. Why? Because they're scared. Scared of the quiet. Scared of being misunderstood. Scared they'll be alone forever. But forever is a lie that fear tells you when patience gets hard. Alone doesn't mean forever. It means for now. It means this is your time to build, your time to heal, your time to dig deep, so that when love finds you again, real love, not the kind that plays games, you'll be ready for it. You won't grab it because you're desperate. You'll receive it because you're full, because you're standing tall in who you are, not begging someone else to complete you. You ever see someone come out of a season of solitude and they just shine? Not because they got someone new, but because they finally became someone whole. That glow isn't love from someone else. That's peace. That's self-worth. That's strength earned in silence. And here's the thing, when you get strong by yourself, you stop settling for weak connections. You stop letting people walk into your life just because you're lonely. You start checking energy. You start protecting your peace. You start asking, do you match the love I've already given myself? Because if they don't, if their presence costs you your growth, your joy, your sanity, you'll know how to let them go. Not in anger, not in fear, but in power, in clarity, in love for yourself. This time alone, it's your training ground. It's the quiet before the breakthrough. So don't waste it. Don't rush it. Don't numb it. Sit with it. Learn from it. Use it. Let it show you the kind of peace you didn't know existed. Let it reveal the parts of you that were buried under fear and people, pleasing and trying to belong. And when the right people show up, and they will, you won't need them to save you. You'll be standing in your own strength. You'll be ready, not because you were waiting to be rescued, but because you were preparing to rise. So no, alone doesn't mean forgotten. It doesn't mean finished. It just means this chapter is yours, and the story you're writing in solitude. That's the one that's going to carry you into everything you've ever been meant to become. Being alone ain't easy. Let's stop pretending it is. Nobody wakes up praying for silence. Nobody celebrates empty rooms and unanswered calls. But sometimes what feels like abandonment is really alignment. Sometimes the people who walked away didn't reject you. They revealed you. And that's a hard pill to swallow when your heart's still bleeding, when your faith feels fragile, and you're looking at the ceiling wondering what you did wrong. But hear me now, just because you're alone doesn't mean you're lost. It might just mean you're finally being found by you. Because if you got to choose between being alone and being overlooked, misused, manipulated, or tolerated, then there's really no choice at all. Choose peace. Choose you. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Because your soul was never meant to survive in rooms where your light had to dim just to make others feel comfortable. You were not born to be someone's second thought. You were not created to be almost loved. See, when you master solitude, everything changes. When you can walk into a room, Not needing attention, not hungry for approval, but rooted in who you are, knowing what you bring to the table, and not shaking when there's no one sitting next to you. That's not loneliness. That's power. That's freedom. That's the kind of presence that can't be taken away, because it wasn't given to you by people. It was built in the dark, forged in the fire, earned in silence. You stop chasing love when you understand that love isn't something you find in others. It's something you first plant in yourself. And when that seed grows, when your roots are deep, you start attracting what matches your frequency. Not because you're desperate, but because you're ready. Because you're no longer begging to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. And now you're simply making room for those who see your value without a sales pitch. That's when everything shifts. That's when you stop fearing loss and start celebrating alignment. That's when your standards rise, not from ego, but from healing. Because you've cried the tears. You've done the work. You've had the sleepless nights, the lonely dinners, the mornings where the silence felt too loud. And you didn't let it break you. You let it build you. So maybe you're in that place right now. Maybe your heart feels heavy, your circle got smaller, and the path feels quiet. I know it hurts. I know some nights feel colder than others. But don't you dare call this the end. Don't you dare mistake isolation for insignificance. What you're walking through right now is not a punishment, it's preparation. Every bit of it. The silence is shaping you. The distance is teaching you. The pain is purifying you. You're not being left behind. You're being called forward. And when you're done growing, when the dust settles and your head is high, not because someone lifted it, but because you lifted yourself, those same people who underestimated your silence, who thought your solitude was weakness, they'll look again. And they won't recognize you. They'll see the strength, the clarity, the light, and they'll wish they never left you alone. But by then you'll understand they had to. So you could meet the version of yourself you were always meant to become. Let the silence shape you. Let the solitude crown you. Because what's being built in the dark will one day walk boldly in the light, and it will be undeniable.